Hey everyone, thanks for listening to Michigan's Legends and Haunts. Make sure you follow us on social media so you get updates about the show. Melissa, where can they find us?
You can find us at facebook.com/mysterious.mila and instagram.com/mysterious.mila. And don't forget, if you like the show, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon.
You can find us at patreon.com/mysteriousmila. Don't forget to follow us wherever you listen and to rate us on Apple Podcasts. Super exciting. Today was our biggest listening day. This week was our biggest listening week. And we hit 1,000 plays on Streicher.
Wow.
Very exciting. So
fancy.
It is a very special episode here today. And we're going to be talking about a cold case out of Ypsilanti. We have a lot to talk about Ypsilanti here on the next few episodes. So here we go.
Welcome. What is that? To Michigan's Legends and Haunts.
Warning. The following content contains graphic descriptions of actual events. Listener discretion is advised.
So we're talking about a cold case today out of Ypsilanti, Michigan. This is the story of Richard Streicher. Richard Streicher was a 7-year-old boy. In the 1930s, I believe. Yep, mid-1930s. And Richard went sledding one day and never returned home. And this is kind of the too long didn't listen version. Basically went sledding one winter night, never returned home. He was found a few days later underneath a footbridge that runs over the Huron River, and his body was discovered with 14 stab wounds. Investigators initially theorized that the murder was sexually motivated, and the way that they came to that determination is...
They didn't even have a reason for that.
No.
They were just like, somebody got stabbed a lot. They probably wanted sex.
Yeah.
What?
No. You know, I always rape. Or nope.
What?
Oh, Lord. I always stab Ashley 14 times. No more. No less than 14 times. That's how she knows I want to get it on.
You always rape my wife.
Yeah. Slip of the tongue. Despite the efforts of Michigan's finest in a statewide murder investigation that went on for months, police came up empty-handed. The case went cold and was never solved. So, getting into the meat and potatoes of things. Number one, I want to say, over the years, I really hope the Ypsilanti Police Department has gotten a lot better.
Yeah.
Because...
a stabbed little boy means sex maniac.
Yeah, exactly. No. Well, not only that, there were like some other murders prior to this called the Torch Murders.
Oh.
And then in the 70s, or in the 60s. It was in the 60s. There was another murder spree that we will be talking about that went on for far too long. So I really hope the police force over there in Ypsilanti's gotten better.
Got their shit together.
Yeah, exactly. So Mr. and Mrs. Richard Streicher, these are little Richard's parents, lived on North Huron Street in Ypsilanti, and the 7-year-old boy, also named Richard, was their only son. The last time that Mrs. Streicher saw her son was somewhere around 4:30 p.m. on March 7th, 1935, when he told her that he was going outside to play in the snow. He grabbed his sled and walked out the door, and he went to play on a hill near the home. Now, there was a little bit of something in the research stating that there's a very specific way that young Richard would place his sled against the house, which I guess becomes important later. So yeah, the way that he placed his sled against the house evidently becomes important later. Reportedly, it took the boy's parents hours to realize he hadn't come home. Once they realized he wasn't home, they borrowed a vehicle, which they had to borrow a vehicle from a neighbor. I don't know if they were like...
They didn't have a car?
Yeah, but from what I read, like, Mr. Streicher was pretty well off. Like, he was a pretty, like...
Oh, okay.
So I don't know why they didn't own a
weird.
car. But either way.
You never know. Who knows?
Who knows what the story is. But they borrowed a vehicle and went searching for him. And the first place they looked was Island Park, which is now called Frog Island Park. And they had to get out of the car and walk across the footbridge to get to the park. Richard was nowhere to be found.
When we say hours, do we know how long it took them to realize? Was it like late into the night? Was it, I mean, he left at 4:30.
Left at 4:30.
Yeah, so, I mean.
So you could assume it'd be dark within like an hour of
right. Yeah. I actually read somewhere that they were like fighting all night, his parents, and they were distracted. So they were in the heat of a fight and were like, wait.
Yeah.
Our son's not here.
I
7. He's 7.
Yeah.
And they're just like, well, that's fine. Wait a second. If my 7-year-old is not home, I'm very, very aware.
Yeah.
But all right.
Well, and I left that out, but now that you say that, like, I left that out because I was like, yeah, that's not really an important thing. But now that you say that, I guess, yeah, in the heat of the moment,
yeah,
you're fighting. You're not going to realize.
Yeah.
So I don't want to make, I mean, okay, they're all probably dead by now, but
oh, for sure.
I don't want to make
they're not going to hear it.
Yeah.
Get upset with you.
But I don't want to make it sound like they're just like, what's the word I'm looking for? Unattentive parents.
Yeah. Oh.
So there was a 13-year-old went by the name of Buck Holt. He was crossing the footbridge with his brother when he looked down and discovered small tracks in the snow. Buck and his brother followed the tracks to discover the body of Richard Streicher lying on a piece of the earth toward the underside of the bridge with only about a 2-foot gap. The body was concealed very well.
Okay, so there was a river, right? And then the bridge was over top of a river, so it wasn't just like an overpass. Maybe it was, I don't know. But either way, the water level was beneath it, and then there was like hills on each side, and they hid his body at the very top of the hill where the bridge was like meeting the ground. Yes.
Okay.
So it was, because I saw a picture. So yeah. There's so many pictures on the internet of these dead children. It's awful. Anyway, so his body was, I mean, you can tell in the picture that it was hard to see. You had to like physically walk up to be able to even see what was up there.
Like
so
up the hill and
right
up under it.
So this boy saw the tracks, and that's the only way that anybody would have seen it.
Right.
But I also read that the tracks that he saw looked to be like they were tiny little tracks from an animal. Actually, I read that it was muskrat.
Oh, really?
So they were not, yeah. And I don't know. Maybe this boy is just crazy, but he claimed that he saw what looked like muskrat prints, which are really little. So
Yeah.
I don't know why he thought that was, well, maybe he was looking for an animal and found a body. I don't know. But when the boy went missing to go sledding, he was actually going sledding with another little boy.
I did not see that part. No.
His friend asked him to go sledding. So he asked his parents if he could go sledding with that boy. And that little boy was the last person to see him.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
so
we must have looked at two different resources, but this is good because we're getting more details.
Well, between the time that his friend had asked him to go sledding and his parents allowing him to, he never showed up. The little boy didn't know anything because he said that he didn't. So I guess his parents would have been the last to see him, but the little boy was the person to see him before that. So,
yeah.
And he didn't know anything. He said that he never showed up.
His friend said he never showed up to go sledding?
Yeah.
Oh.
So somewhere in between grabbing his sled
and going to the hill, which evidently was like right near the house.
Right.
That's scary.
I know.
Okay. So yeah. Okay. I'm glad you're throwing that stuff in there because I did not find any of that. So that's good. Good. I mean, not good, but
not good.
So the story would change across different news outlets, with one of them reporting that he was stabbed 6 times, which I guess when it comes down to it, it really doesn't matter how many times he was stabbed.
No,
I mean, he was stabbed, but
I mean, it is.
I guess it could point to something if it's a serial killer or something.
I mean, I was going to say it's important information, but I guess it doesn't really matter. He's dead either way. But I mean, where was the mix up? Like what?
Yeah.
Why? I don't know.
I imagine that one news source is he was stabbed 6 times, hearsay.
Yeah.
And then
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, it's I mean, it says something. The media hasn't changed much.
Yeah,
because they still just spout off at the mouth without knowing all the facts.
Yeah.
But the autopsy reports would show that he had been stabbed as many as 14 times, and it would also show that his head had been beaten. Very, very small amounts of blood were found at the body site, so police theorized that he had been killed elsewhere, and the body moved under the bridge later on. It was also theorized that his body at one point was also in the river due to its frozen state when it was found.
He was frozen to the ground.
Yeah.
They couldn't get him off the ground because he was frozen. So they thought that he had been dipped in the river I wonder, maybe somebody else found him and just took him out of the river and I don't know. That's
just a random person's there's a dead body. Better move this out of the water.
Never mind. I don't know.
It might get hypothermia.
No.
What?
I don't know. I'm not going to work for the task force. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right. So on March 9th, the Ann Arbor News published a story with a headline reading, "Sex Maniac Sought in Boy's Murder."
Sex maniac.
Yeah.
With a knife.
What?
The sex maniac with a knife.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. You just need a knife.
Yeah.
Boom. Sex maniac.
Sex maniac. I've got 40 knives upstairs. Does that mean I'm a sex maniac times 40? Come on.
Yes.
The prosecutor for Washtenaw County at the time, Albert Rapp, told reporters that the multiple stab wounds and head trauma indicated that whoever did this to the boy was a, quote, frenzied sex maniac, end quote.
Yet there were no implications of anything done to his body besides
sexually.
Exactly.
Okay. It was like, well, there were a few signs that something was done.
Not I meant. Nothing. No sexual assault, just stabbed.
Yeah.
But okay.
What? So at this point, there were no suspects, and the only lead they had to go off of was the word of a few other boys that, here we go, that Richard was sledding with, stating that he went off with a man in a black coat.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
So other people were at the hill.
Yeah.
Okay.
So evidently he kind of
Interesting.
made it there.
He did. He made it there, but the friend that he was going to sled with said he hadn't seen him.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh,
I don't think 7-year-olds are out here stabbing each other 14 times, but you never know, I guess.
Another clue that investigators had was that his sled was left leaning against the house. So like we said earlier, he put it in a very particular position. However, it was leaning against the house in a way that Richard never left it. At this point, the only motive officials could come up with was that of revenge. So that's what I came across. But revenge for what? I don't know.
Well, I doubt the 7-year-old did anything.
It could be revenge against the parents.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I think the dad owned like a, I should have put it in here, but I think the dad owned like a, some sort of factory or something along those lines.
So he
pissed somebody off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, that makes more sense than a sex maniac to me.
Now, with the police having no leads, they began rounding up those in the community that were thought of as, quote, degenerates, end quote. The best lead that authorities had at the time was a man at the Oliver Hotel who was accused of making sexual advances toward little boys. The man was questioned, but ultimately no charges were filed. Police questioned others around town with criminal pasts, but still nothing. For the most part, anyone who had any connection to Richard was a suspect. The case ended up going national, as it had only been a few short years since what was called the Torch Murders that also took place in Ypsilanti. Blah, blah, blah.
It's a hard word.
We're going to just say Ipsy.
Ipsy.
That took place in Ipsy. As to be expected, the citizens of Ipsy became scared for their children, as they didn't know if there was a motive or if there was just someone out there that was preying on children. Michigan's governor at the time, Frank Fitzgerald, then put the Michigan State Police on the case. So he evidently decided, Ipsy police, not good enough. We're going to go state police. Multiple people in multiple states were questioned about the murder, including the boy's uncle, who lived in Illinois, and former neighbors of the Streichers in Indiana. They questioned an ex-convict named, quote, Bloody Mike,
Yikes.
and even a hobo who lived west of Ypsilanti. Still no leads. I don't know how you go, like, so, like, I get questioning family and, like, the uncle and maybe, like, old neighbors of theirs and different things like that, but then they're just like, hey, there's a hobo over there. We're going to go question him. Like, what?
Where were you on the day of what, March 9th?
I don't know, man. I don't even own a calendar. Like, what?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it makes sense that they're just questioning everyone they can find, but a hobo? Maybe he looked shady, but what?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's reaching a little bit. I think it's just police, like, trying to say, yeah, we're doing our job. You know?
Yeah.
So So Richard's parents were also questioned because we haven't talked about that, and they were questioned extensively.
Yeah.
However, they were never serious suspects. Eventually, the investigation began coming to a close, even after a judge heard testimony from 39 people involved with the case. And eventually, the story just left the headlines. There was no new information coming out, nothing. And still, as of today in 2020, it is still a cold case.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to figure that out.
No, they've never figured it out.
I have no idea. You know, they questioned his parents extensively because, you know, the only son goes missing. His parents are fighting. They don't even notice that he's gone. That's kind of weird.
Right.
But I think they said something specifically about the dad. They were really questioning him. The only thing that I don't understand is the sled being put back. You know, like, maybe somebody was watching him take the sled, and then
Maybe.
like they were watching him and then just thought, you know, we'll put this back where it came from, and what, nobody will notice.
Nobody will notice that the kid's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, sled's back. He must be around somewhere.
Yeah, that's really strange.
Yeah.
That's really strange. And his parents were very like adamant about the fact that that's not the way his sled goes. That's not the way he keeps it. Like, somebody else did that. So
Right.
I don't know. That's just a little weird.
I don't know. I feel like maybe the parents did kill him.
Yeah.
I really do.
I mean, it's hard for me to like wrap my head around that, but parents kill their children. It happens.
Yeah.
They do it.
Yeah.
It's awful, but I mean, he was right by home with just a bunch of his friends.
I don't know. I think it was his parents, or I think it was the friend that was like, he never showed up.
What? Maybe it was the kid that found him. Who knows?
Yeah.
Muskrat tracks? I don't know.
Okay. Well, it was the 1930s. They didn't have a whole lot to do.
Oh. I might follow some animal tracks too. Like, ooh. But it could have been anyway.
Kitty.
I like to follow the bunny tracks. Okay?
Yeah.
No, I do want to feed the cats though. When I see kitty tracks, I'm like, I'm gonna get them some food.
Oh my god! Don't do it.
Why?
We did that once, and then we ended up
and then
with
you
a
got a
cat.
kitty. Yeah. See, I got way too excited. I like. Well, I think I like cats more than dogs at this point. But
I just don't like animals anymore. But
they're annoying.
Yeah.
That's why dogs bother me, because I'm like, get away from me. I'm trying to eat food.
All right, back on
track.
A little tangent. That was fun.
I'm just saying, like, a 13-year-old boy, he was following animal tracks. I guess that's understandable, but you never know who it was.
Right.
Well, actually, no, it couldn't have been him, right? Because the kid was already frozen to the ground. So,
can you imagine that too? Like,
finding a dead corpse.
Yeah,
frozen to the ground.
Yeah.
A little boy at that.
And you have to literally like scrape him off the ground.
Oh yeah.
What the fuck? That's messed up.
At least it wasn't like super decomposed, because I don't know if that's the plus side, but I don't know.
I can see.
At least he wasn't rotten.
Side, but
I don't know. Yeah.
We need to stop talking about dead kids.
Hey,
we need to move in.
That wants to talk about dead kids.
No, I don't want to. It's just the stuff I come
do.
across, and I'm like, I'm gonna write an episode of that. We're gonna talk about that. But our first 3 true crime episodes have all been about kids,
little dead babies.
So we're gonna.
This is the last one for a little while, though. Yeah.
This is the last one for a little while.
There's not.
We've got a
Maybe.
big one coming next week.
Yes.
It's a 3-part episode.
a good
However,
one.
all the episodes are going to drop on the same day.
Yeah.
Just doing it for ease of listening for everybody. So, do you have anything else to add to this one? I mean, it's a cold case. There's nothing more we can really go off of. Personally, I think it was the parents.
Yeah, that's really sad. I don't know, but it probably was.
Yeah.
He went off with a man in a coat. I mean, could have been his dad.
It could have been his dad. But you would, but you would think that the kid that like reported that he went off with a man in a black, like long black coat or whatever. I mean, at that time, Ypsilanti wasn't as big as it is now. I mean, Ypsilanti's still not huge, but
I mean, he probably would have known it was his dad.
yeah, you would think.
Yeah, probably.
So I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts in this. You know, you got stab wounds and head trauma and sex mania and kids. And kids aren't really reliable sources of information
No.
anyways, so that makes it tough.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this up. And everybody, hope you enjoyed this true crime episode. Join us next week.